Hi, we're here in my backyard. Usually I would do stuff like that in my garage, but it's pretty ugly in there and pretty dark, so we decided to take it out here, and I'm gonna show you how to fix a button. First of all, I think it's important to understand what sort of button pieces there is on the market and how the buttons are built. So you have a couple different tubes, a couple different rods, and these parts they come into buttons that you have in your sail. Starting with what for this video we're gonna call the big tube. There's a couple different 13 or 14 in some brands millimeter tubes. There's glass ones, there's carbon ones, there's 30% carbon, 60% carbon, soft glass, stiff glass. There's a load of different models, but in general the diameter is always the same. In most brands it's 13 millimeter. Then we have something that we're gonna call the middle tube. It's an 11 millimeter usually glass tube. There's a couple different stiffnesses as well, but that's kind of irrelevant for now. And then there is what we usually call tips, and there's also something we call tips, which basically are 9 millimeter round rods, full inside, grinded into a flat section in the front, which basically is in the front of any windsurf sail available on the market. Now let's look at a couple different button types that manufacturers use in our sails. Most wave sails or freestyle sails or something are gonna have one-piece buttons, which is basically the tip or the rod grinded in a way that the designer wants the stiffness. Then there's two-piece buttons, which are basically the tip plus the thick 13 mil tube, or the big tube as we tend to refer to it. And then there's also three-piece buttons made out of all the ingredients that I've mentioned before. The big tube, the middle tube, and the tip. This is obviously custom made by me. It doesn't come out like this out of the factory, but we'll get to that in a moment. So you broke a button in your sail. What do you do? First, you're gonna have to take it out, which can be a little bit tricky because if the button detaches completely, the front piece can sometimes stay in the sail. So you're either gonna have to open the little webbing that's inside the lav sleeve, or you're gonna have to make a little cut on the button pocket to take out that broken part with pliers. Then you need to realize what it was and what you want to do about it, what kind of button it was, and whether you want to fix it or make a new one. To make a new one, obviously you're gonna need parts. The parts should probably be available at your local shop, at your local dealer, and if they're not, check out EASY-surfshop. Now they're shipping worldwide, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. And if you still decide to fix it, I'm going to show you how. So now that you managed to take out your button out of your sail, you see, let's start with a one-piece button. Let's see, you see that it was a one-piece button. You don't want to make a new one, you want to fix it. You're gonna need a bit of this 11 mil tube. An 8 cm bit will definitely do. So you want to cut off the rough, sort of broken bits out of the button and make it nice and sort of square again. And then you're gonna want to put 4 cm from each side into that 8 cm 11 mil tube. So now it's in, it's almost fixed. You're probably gonna have to glue it. Normal regular super glue will do, or whatever you have in your country. but sort of a 10 or 30 second or whatever it is glue. Try not to glue your fingers together. That's what I always do actually when I fix those kind of things, but I'm working on it. A lot of the times those rods, they come with a bit of tape on top, or sort of some plastic. So the part that you glue, obviously you're gonna wanna take that plastic off. So the easiest is just to make a nice cut along the button, and then just take this wrapping off, just like that. Easy. And to make sure the glue sticks, you want to roughen up the surface just a little bit with any kind of smooth sandpaper. It can be a 400 and 600, 800, whatever. Just don't go too rough, not to make not to mess with the diameter of the button. So depending on how that button broke, how you cut the parts next to the point where it broke, it could be too short. So again, you want to have a piece that you can put both sides in and extend that button in the back. Obviously, it's never really the best idea to fix a button. Whenever you can just replace it, it's better, because these buttons, they're pretty crucial for how the performance of the sail is. And when you fix it, you put a stiff point somewhere along the curve of the button, so it's gonna create a stiff spot, and the profile will not be the same as it was before the button was broken. So now let's imagine you took the button out of a sail, you discover that it's a two-piece button and you want to fix it. Most of the times they're probably gonna break here on the connector, on the plastic. The plastic itself might be the weakest link of the button. So when that happens, it's very easy. You just need a new plastic. Again, you can get it at probably any sort of local surf shop, or if you can't, go to EASY-surfshop.com and they'll hook you up. And you just put a nice new tip in. Then you just put a nice tube, and the button is fixed. That was easy, wasn't it? In case it actually breaks on the tip, then you can either replace it or do as I showed you before with the one-piece button. If it breaks on the tube, again, that middle tube will come in handy. It'll be sort of the same as it was on that one-piece button, but instead of over, it's gonna go inside the tube. So you're gonna have two tubes, and you're just gonna put 4 cm of that middle tube, of that 11 mil tube, inside one, super glue it, and then you're gonna put the other side. And the tube is good as new. When you're super gluing it, my tip is to maybe put some sort of an indicator, or maybe just a piece of tape to see how far you're putting it in. So let's say you just take a little piece of tape and you wrap it at 4 centimeters, so in the middle of that tube. Because when you're super gluing it, you don't want to glue that part. You don't want to put the glue first here and then start putting it in, because there's a big chance that the glue will stick, that the glue will dry, and it'll stick somewhere like 1 cm in or something, and the button will definitely break. when you hit the water. So what you want to do is you want to put like 5 mil to 1 cm in, then put the glue, here, and then when you slide it in, you can slide it in full power. It takes a split second, and that tape will prevent it from sliding further. So then you take that tape off, this bit is already glued in, so it's not gonna move, and you put the other tube, and again your batten is fixed. So now let's rewind again and imagine that you took out the batten out of your sail and it was a 3-piece batten, and that's where it gets a little bit more complicated. The way a 3-piece batten is built, there's no more connectors, there's no more plastic in between parts or anything. It's just one tube stuck into the other, and then the tip is stuck into the middle tube, glued or pinned using stainless steel pins. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's say you broke a batten here on the connection of the big tube and the middle tube, which happens quite often. So what you want to do is you obviously want to cut this little rough bit and make it nice and square again, and you definitely want to cut the part of the big tube where the middle tube is stuck into, so you can put your new middle tube inside there, or if you're fixing it, the remaining part of that middle tube. So let's just do it now. Let's just cut it. My little my nice little clump right here. Yeah, as I said, I wouldn't usually be doing it here in my garden, but just for you. So I know that I stuck this this middle tube 4 cm in, so because I built that batten, but usually you're just gonna have to cut and see how deep that batten is. A lot of the times it's even up to 8 cm. Competitors would usually use around 4 cm because that's where you know, the curve still remains a nice curve rather than creating this big stiff spot. So I'm just gonna measure 4 cm, cut it, I measured wrong because I need to cut it a little bit further, which is what happens a lot of the times. Okay, that's good. Now take the other one. Cut it. Fix it nice and tight first. Cut it. And now we can put it in again. Again, I would do the same thing. I would probably put a tape at 4 cm and super glue the thing in. Unfortunately, in this case, super glue most of the times is not going to be enough. So what you want to do is you want to probably drill the connection. And put a stainless steel pin, which in this case is 2mm, so we're gonna have to use a 2mm drill bit. Start drilling. So yeah, we have a nice little 2mm hole. Obviously you don't want to clamp the batten too hard, not to, not to squeeze it in. They're quite strong for that, but not that strong, so don't do it too hard. Now you're gonna put that pin in, maybe even give it a little with my little hammer. And now it's obviously gonna stick out. We don't want to put it in the sail that way, so we're gonna want to put it back in the clamp and make it not stick out. So what I usually do is I don't really cut that pin. I just give it a little, probably like 10 movements with the saw, and then break it off with the pliers. So go around 10 movements, pliers, break it off, and yeah, it's done. So another thing that I most of the times do when I fix my battens is I'm probably gonna tape that connection. First of all, the pin still kind of sticks out, maybe 1mm or something, so you don't want it to rub against the cloth of the batten pocket. Second of all, if the batten breaks, it's probably gonna break on one of those connectors. So it's better to tape it up, and then whenever it breaks, you just take it out all at once, rather than having pieces stuck in the sail, as we talked before. I used to use electrical tape, but a couple times it just snapped when I was trying to pull the batten out when it was broken, and then it stayed still in the sail. So now I switched over to duct tape or silver tape, which is a little stronger. Now that we fixed this connection, we're probably gonna have to extend the back of the batten, because as you remember, we cut a couple cm here. Again, it's always better to remain with the original lengths of the parts, but if you really have to fix it, we just cut probably around 5 cm here, so we're gonna have to give a 5 cm extension here. Again, our magical 11 mil tube goes inside, super glue it at 4 cm, put the other 4 cm on top, you have your extension right there. Or you can extend the batten connector that the batten tensioner comes onto, which is basically this plastic connection piece plus the rod. So you can just put a longer rod as well instead. Another thing that I sort of found out, which is maybe pretty obvious, but I had to learn it by doing, is that whenever you connect a short front tip to this middle tube, it's probably gonna be connected already at the place where this tip is already grinded. So there's gonna be a little bit of space, in between the wall of the tube and the rod that goes inside. So super glue is sort of a glue that connects surfaces. So whenever it's not touching, like it doesn't really fill up those voids, those spaces very well. So a better solution is Poxypol. It's a 2-component epoxy glue, which is pretty good at both like gluing the actual surface together, but also it fills those open spaces up. And the other nice thing is it doesn't dry as fast as super glue, so you have a bit of time to play rather than having like 10 seconds and then gluing all your fingers together like I always do. So I guess that's it. I hope that was helpful. Again, whenever you have a chance to change the tube or change the tip, just work with original parts, with new parts, rather than trying to put together the old broken parts. That's always better. But if not, hopefully that was clear enough so you can actually fix the Battens and have fun on the water. Cheers.